Like I said, you don't know if you're gonna win the overall or not, but you know at that point you at least won your class, so it was cool. That was a big step up because I just wanted to place in the top 5 at the show. So I went from 7th at nationals to now first place in my class for sure at the USA's, and then they call you back out to do the overall, and they're doing quarter turns and mandatory poses and stuff. And here I go back to the middle again. And I just about lost it. And then when they started calling out the name, and my name was the overall winner, and I just won my pro card, I'd never felt that feeling ever in my whole entire life. That makes me a little teary, but it was the most overwhelming feeling ever. The biggest accomplishment ever in my whole life.
Right.
And so, anyway.
I don't know about you, but this feels like a bedtime story.
I
feel I'm like,
well, I'm so intrigued.
But seriously, it was just truly the most amazing thing ever. So
it was done more naturally back then with like your experience with that photo shoot gave you exposure. Nowadays, these bodybuilders, men and women, are getting exposure online and promoting themselves, and people are talking about them. Well, then the judges are paying attention to their Instagram now.
It's almost
instead
manufactured.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems scripted now.
Yeah.
The hype's built online. You were the real deal in person. They had a glimpse of it, and so when the show came, they're like, "Oh, we want to look for Bonnie. Where's Bonnie?
Yeah,
Call
she's
her
that
out
girl.
here."
She looked good the other day. Let's see what she looks like.
I feel
tonight.
like it's. I'm not trying to discredit bodybuilders now, but back then, like, that was the time. You know, especially in that era with a lot of people in men's and women's that were coming up. You know, late '90s, early 2000s. You know, it was a real dominating era.
Back then, there was only 2 categories. It was bodybuilding or fitness for women. That's it. And for men, there was no weight category, like at the pro level.
Right, it was men's open only. They didn't have
open.
classic, they didn't have 212.
No, they had nothing. So, you know, for women, they came out with fitness, I don't know, sometime in the 90s, but it was, I know like when I competed, they'd already had fitness for a few years, I guess. But anyway, so I turned pro and I'm thinking, all right, my world is going to change, and it didn't. And I still had to have a full-time
back grinding out, suffering.
True, it's true. So, you know, I still had a full-time job, and I'm running the gym, and I'm training my clients, which is what I love to do. And really, like, you know, bodybuilding for me, everything is cool. I liked working out. It was fun. I freaking hated dieting, and I detest doing cardio. So for me, it was just you do whatever you have to do to be the best you can be on stage, and that's the only reason I would have ever wanted to diet and do cardio.
Right.
But the world didn't open up to me. Could I have done things different and market myself? I probably could have, but I didn't know what to do. So it just was me here in San Angelo with a pro card. And then 2003, this is kind of a cool thing. So Lonnie Teeper, editor of Women's Physique, one of the writers for Ironman, was also on the committee for the Arnold Classic. Back then, it was a selection committee that only selected a certain number of competitors for each category.
Invite only type.
Right. Invitation only. You had to send in a formal letter requesting the invite, and then the committee went over, like, who is this person? What has she won? Let me see some pictures of her. I think you had to send a couple pictures of yourself.
What kind of publicity is she going to bring to us, basically?
Right. Is she going to make us look bad or good on stage?
Right.
So he went to bat, and unanimously I was picked to be in the show. I don't know how many usually would put in for that sort of thing, but I was picked. I think that first year I competed as a pro, there were 2 weight classes in women's bodybuilding. They did away with it the very next year. But I did the show. I think I placed 7th or something like that, which it may or may not have been last. I don't know. But as a newbie pro, I didn't give a crap. Are you kidding me? I'm standing on the stage at the Olympia. There's no amateurs then. It was only pros at the the Arnold Classic.
Classic,
At the Arnold Classic then, and so I was just like happy to be there, happy to be picked. You know, you think I'm good enough to be here? I'm last, but okay, cool.
But that's relative, right? The way that I think that the way it sounds to me, like let's say it was last, that's still relative last. In the greatest,
in
like,
the world,
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of weird to like think about.
Invite-only environment, too, especially. So just being invited, dead last or not, they thought of you.
Yeah,
you know,
which was cool. So then I'm trying to think, would have been in the summer sometime, June, July, August, something like that. I competed at the, I don't remember if it was called the Southwest Pro then or already the Europa. But it was the Europa in Texas is a really big show. Right. It's a 2-day show. Anyway, that was my second pro show. Here local, so cool. Family could come, all that good stuff. I ended up winning my class in the overall. It was amazing. Qualified for the Olympia. That was 2004. And go to the Olympia, and I think I got dead last in my weight class, right? So the very next year, I think I did.
So that was your first Olympia experience?
That was my first Olympia.
What was that like going there and qualifying for that?
I mean, it's overwhelming. You know, it's you're at the pinnacle of a sport. It is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, except for you're competing with people all over the world.
Right.
There's people there you're competing with that don't even understand English. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the best of the best, hands down, bar none. They're amazing.
It's almost more comparable to like the Olympics, except for it's yearly, right?
Right.
Like pulling the best from all over the world.
Yeah.
And that's what was, and I had this conversation with my wife yesterday, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna sit down with Bonnie. And my wife has no idea. She doesn't know anything about this. And not that she doesn't care, because you know she cares about me. Like whatever, you know how you have somebody that cares about you, so they care about what you care about, but in the back of their mind they don't really care.
That's stupid, yeah.
So we're talking about it, and we're talking about like your accomplishments, and she was like, my wife looked at me. She was like, so like in the world, I'm like, yeah, in the world, and she was like, in San Angelo. I'm like, yeah, like this is like it's a big deal. You know what I mean? And I mean, that kind of goes into like something that I wanted to say. I think I want everybody to kind of hear is that like, I think, and I could kind of speak for the both of us. We just respect what you do, period, right?
Absolutely.
Not just and like it's not just the accomplishments. It's not just that you own this gym and how this gym feels to us. Mm-hmm. It's also like seeing you out there with your clients, like the level of respect for Bonnie, right? Like, as we talk about Bonnie, it's like it's a big deal to whoever, and you are a big deal here. And I don't know if you know that because even my football players are like, Bonnie is bigger than Coach Pratt. I'm like,
you know what's crazy though is that there's so many people, because I don't really put myself out there. I don't really advertise myself. I just feel like
no, we do it for you.
I appreciate that. I do,
I mean?
But like I just feel like there's I don't really believe in bragging on yourself, talking yourself up, saying how amazing. If somebody asks me a question, I am happy to answer the question. Mm-hmm. But to be like, I don't know if you realize who I am, but
right.
I mean, one time or whatever. I just, you know, for me, it's just I do what I do because I love it and I love people. And I like to change lives. Do people have to be super skinny and super ripped and like the most fit people walking out of here? Nope. Nope. But I love what I do.
Right.
So, you know.
Just to touch base on that first Olympia, that time, like, you know, you had the Ronnie Coleman era for the men's.
Yeah.
Jay Cutler was coming up, killing it. And then all those other mass monsters. But then on the female side, we had Iris Kyle just dominating.
Oh, dominating.
She's the winningest IFBB Pro across all divisions.
Absolutely.
10-time Miss Olympia.
Yeah.
So coming up for me, like, people talk about the golden era, the Arnold days back in the day. That was cool and all, but the mass monster era, late 90s, early 90s, Dorian Yates, through the 90s, Coleman, Cutler, and even Iris Kyle, like those are my favorite times. So to be able to pick your brain about that is really exciting for me because I'm like, yeah, that's when I go back to bodybuilding, that's where I want to like look at. You know, I like that era. Right. You know, because everyone was so freaky, the men and the women. You know, it's just such an appeal to it.
So it was. You know, as far as like the Olympia goes, like everybody knew Iris was going to win. She was at that time unbeatable. She came in ripped, she came in dry, and her proportions were phenomenal. and truly unbeatable.
She had a massive V-taper for a female.
Yeah, and
just
she
huge
had
lats and
like a
upper
lot of
body.
people didn't
Those
realize
waves.
until you were standing next to her, to see her in like our warm-ups and stuff like that. She just looked like one of the fitness girls until she took them off.
Right.
And her freaking little hips, like her bone structure was tiny, and she had a large amount of muscle on top of that. She didn't have like, you know, like some of the girls now that are bodybuilding are like they're thick in the middle, their hips or glutes are like real big.
Little box.
Everything.
What else sounded like?
Emphasize
boxy.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like super. It's like the proportions not there at all. There's nothing really like beautiful about their physiques besides like, holy crap, that's a lot of something.
Right.
Right? But she had like these huge developed gorgeous shoulders, and you know when you like the cut between the shoulder and where the bicep and tricep are, that looked so deep, and it looked like she had no bone underneath. Like her bone structure, like her wrists and stuff were small, her knee joints small. So you put a decent amount of muscle on a body like that. She and I weighed close to the same, but we damn sure did not look the same.
And I know I told you a couple months ago on vacation, I stopped at her new gym in Las Vegas, the Powerhouse, and I actually got to meet her, and she's, I don't know, maybe 5'6", 5'5". She's not a very
She's
tall
same
woman,
height
right?
as me.
So, and like, I'm only 5'9", but standing next to her, I was like, I can only imagine how much muscle you had back in the day, you know, and I had mentioned you, and she had nothing but the nicest, sweetest things to say about you, and so that was really cool, and you know, just experiencing that and seeing somebody like that too, you know, like on that level, it was just a crazy experience, honestly. You know?
And so the first Olympia, to kind of get back to that, the camaraderie between competitors and that sort of stuff, those top girls were usually like off on their own because they'd been there, done that, they were friends, right? So then now you got these newbies coming on stage and stuff like that. There were a few girls that were just, I mean, everybody was happy to be there. There were some that you're just like, oh my god, like you're way too happy to be here because you should be feeling a little bit like shit. But you know, for the most part, like you got your veterans and you got your newbies, and cool, yeah, we're at the same level, but you're really not at the same level. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you haven't paid your dues yet.
But nobody was rude.
Right.
Nobody tried to sabotage somebody else. I mean, you hear about that stuff all the time, even at the state level. Some, like the bikini girls or figure or whatever, stealing shoe or stealing a bikini bottom or something. It's just, it's stupid.
And nowadays it's trash talking online,
Yeah.
and getting the crowd riled up,
and
you know,
like,
to
who
pick
gives a crap?
favorites.
And back then there was trash talking like in the magazines, or like there was like forums or this or that, but
did the females do like the pre-show press conference thing like the
yes.
males do?
So we all had to do it with the men. But nobody trash talked. It was just kind of question and answer, that sort of stuff. Then, is it AMI that owns like National Enquirer or something like that?
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, when they bought out all the Weeder stuff, all the magazines, all the shows, when they bought that out, everything changed. So they brought in Triple H, WWE guy, right?
Yeah.
They brought him in, and they were basically like, we want him to go over how we want this to run to make it more entertaining for the crowd.
Spice it up.
Yeah. So us girls are like, ew, this is stupid. Like, I'm not doing that. It's dumb. And so there were a few girls that would kind of go, like Diana Cadeau and Iris Kyle would kind of go back and forth, and Yatsini, or however you say her name, she would, you know, try to chime in, but like her accent didn't really let her shit talk a whole lot. So it was like those top three girls, they were trying to shit talk, but like girls really aren't like shit talkers like that, right? And then the guys would kind of go back and forth a little bit, but it was just kind of like banter, I guess. Nothing really like mean, nothing whatever. Anyway, so it was, I don't know, I can't remember if that was the third Olympia that I was in or the fourth, but they moved it from, let's see where we were. No, I can't remember the name of the hotel. We're at this really nice casino on the Strip, and they moved it to the Orleans Arena, so it's less expensive for them, that sort of stuff. They
That's where it
expected
is up
us.
until COVID. Now they're doing it in Florida, of course, but
Right.
yeah, they're still using that.
So then they have, so you've got the press conference. They've got the Meet the Olympians, where everybody sits at tables and all the fans can come by. You can sign photos, take pictures with people. If you've got merch and that sort of stuff, you can sell that. But you know, I just was never really big into that. I just, you know, if you like me, I'm cool with it, but I'm not gonna push myself on you.
Right.
And like, I know that I'm competing in the Olympia, but I'm still just a regular girl. You know,
Right.
I'm not really anybody special. I'm not a celebrity, and to me, even celebrities, they're just
Right.
regular people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you got all these like they got really great fans, and then you got some really strange fans, really strange fans. That can be a talk for another day. 'Cause I could have some stories about that. But
Do you think that humility is kind of what got you to that point? Because that's what it kind of sounds like, almost like the idea of just like when you talk about the passion and like you laying on your stomach just thumbing through magazines and having to grind out and just, you know, not really knowing what you're doing, and then like just having to learn and really figure out what was working for you. Do you think that's probably why, or at least one of the reasons why you were so successful?
you know, maybe for me that
Yeah.
that worked. You know, for somebody else who has no patience at all, it wouldn't work.
Right.
They would have quit way before they turned
I'm
pro.
sure the support from your mom bringing you those magazines and that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure that really helped.
And you know, and
sounds like
she
they're
doesn't-
supportive through your career as well.
She never really understood what I was doing, but it's something that I loved, so she supported me. Kind of like your wife is like, "Oh my God, I'm like excited about what you're excited about, but I really
Right.
don't give a shit."
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so.
So that's, you know, and talking about support. So I think that we can all like be honest in the idea that like the idea of a female bodybuilder, there's a lot of people in our society that just plain don't understand.
Right.
Right. So and then like to even think about as you were coming up, how did you feel like just normal everyday things? Like how do you feel like you were received by like the normal, like the everyday public and like
Especially in a small Texas town like
Right.
this,
So
you know what I mean?
that was not good. So like if I went to, well, I always knew that in a gym I was safe, right? And people stare, you get used to people staring. Well, most people are cool with other people staring. This is just a weird thing about me since I was a kid. You know, I was taught not to stare at people. Right? So when someone stared at me, it bothered me to the core. And I know that like walking through the mall and somebody staring, I would like literally eye contact the whole entire time until they looked away. The fuck, dude? Like, how long do you have? I'm different, yeah. But it's like somebody who, I mean, like has a missing limb or
Right.
or you know,
You're
they're
treating them like
burned
they're a
or
freak,
yeah,
you know?
right.
They're
And
just trying to live their
so
life.
there's people that would make comments like, "Ew, she looks gross," or "I, you know, wouldn't ever want to look like that," or whatever. For me, I got really lucky, and there weren't a lot of people who said negative things to me. Did I have some? Yes. Did it hurt? Absolutely. I don't know if they think because you have muscles you can't hear. You know what I mean?
Your traps are in the way. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
right. But
Nowadays, everyone's running up to people like that. Let me take your picture.
Oh,
Let
I
me get
know.
a picture with you. Oh
Yeah.
my God, you know, and it's just like,
yeah.
this has been a thing. You
Right.
know,
Yeah,
it's gonna be a
it's
thing.
been a while.
Right.
But, you know, for the most part, I think that, you know, you were definitely the oddball. And now it's a little bit more like there's a lot more muscular people. People are into their own bodies and that sort of stuff now. So it's a little bit different. But I was not just like a muscular chick. I was a pretty big chick. So,
No, definitely.
you know, in the off season, I was a very lean 170 something, knocking on 180. Pretty dang lean though. And now like it's 170, but
What was your stage weight?
Not
How much
silly.
of a cut would you go?
usually upper 150s, low 160s
Okay.
was. I probably always looked best in the upper 150s though, like
Okay.
right under that 160 mark. But you know, I think that society then was definitely different. Like people are just like cool with whatever now.
Yeah,
It doesn't even matter if you got some like crazy hair or like makeup on one eye and not the other. People are like, oh, that's different. Anyway, go on with your day, right? Then everything was like, that's extreme. So you got just regular soft people, and then whoa, right? So that was probably the most difficult. It kind of makes you a recluse a little bit. I always wore men's t-shirts, and I would wear shorts. So my legs looked muscular, but they were never like insanely muscular. So I'd get compliments like, oh my God, you have the greatest legs. But that's because they didn't look crazy weird. For a girl to have more muscular legs, like, wasn't really unheard of. But a muscular set of shoulders and arms and a big thick back and traps and pecs, very odd. So I always stayed covered up. I very rarely even worked out in a tank top, and I never wore a tank top in public, ever.
Oh, wow.
It was just easier to stay covered up. So.
Was there ever any resentment, like when you hear other women talking about not wanting to lift weights because they didn't want to get too big, as if it's like really that easy? Because when I hear that, it messes with me. Like, if you really think just by lifting weights you're gonna get that big, I must be doing something terribly wrong.
Right.
Because
it's not gonna happen.
Right.
So even today, and you wouldn't think that people's attitude towards weightlifting would still be the same. But it is, and people are still saying the same thing. Oh, I don't want to look like that, so I'm not going to lift weights. Lifting weights is bad for you. Da 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 da. No, like in order to be big and muscular, it has to be extreme. It has to be, I'm eating everything I'm supposed to eat every single day of the week, and I don't skip meals ever, and I don't skip a workout.
Spend an hour to 2 hours in the gym, 5-6 days a week.
Right, exactly. People, though, they try to go to the extreme. They're training 7 days a week in the gym, and they're lifting weights, and they stay in there 2 or 3 hours and all that stuff. If you're using intensity, and that's where a lot of people lack also, it's heavy weights, but it's still intensity. It's feeling like you can't pick your arms up or walk normal or whatever body part. But there's I'm going to say 99% of the population wouldn't ever train as hard as it would take to gain that amount of muscle. Period.
Right, absolutely.
It can't. People don't know what that feels like.
This kind of goes into something I wanted to talk about anyways, was like, I noticed we come in the morning when we work out, so a lot of your clients are the older crowd, 50, 60-year-old. Those women are busting their ass and they're not getting jacked. Right. You know what I mean? So that proves like you can bust your ass, lift weights, train with the IFBB Pro trainer, and not get jacked.
They
but
just look
still
regular.
And they're healthy. You know, it's like I call it functional fitness. You know, as you're getting older, the geriatric crowd, your body's deteriorating. So you're helping them stay young. And I see these women in here doing things that I don't even want to do. They don't look fun.
Right.
You know, and they're busting their ass every day. You know, so it's just really cool to see that and know that these women are in there at that age. And I know some of them you've been with for almost 20 years. So it's really amazing to see that too.
Yeah.
You know.
And let's be clear. I did one training session with Bonnie's group.
Me and my training partners.
And I like to think that I'm in decent shape, but I wanted to train with Bonnie because I knew that my hamstrings and glutes, I was having an issue where my squat just wasn't going anywhere, and I knew that that's what it was from. So I'm like, hey, let me jump out the window and train with Bonnie, hams and glutes. I will never do it again. Let me be clear. I will never do it again. I had to sleep like a pregnant woman. I had a pillow between my legs.
I know, but what's bad is that my legs have always been my strongest body part, period. I mean, there's one side or the other that needs to be brought up or whatever, but it was always the strongest body part. So it wasn't ever like, it'll burn or something's heavy, but now you could probably kill me on any upper body workout.
I don't know. Sometimes I look at our workouts, I'm like, Bonnie, I don't know where you get the ideas that we can do these things. Like,
but then you do, and it's fine, right? I mean,
we adjusted accordingly, but we do it.
Ew, I like our idea, but not like
that's gonna suck. It sucks good, but it still sucks.
Yeah.
So.